A man regains consciousness in an unfamiliar place, confused about who he is and even questioning whether he might already be dead. Soon, he hears a woman's voice pleading with an ancestor to show mercy to her and her unborn child, asking to be allowed to give birth. The answer that follows is cold and final. Another voice declares that the Valley of the Medicine God has examined the case and found that the mother's foundation is damaged, her natural talent is lacking, and the fetus she carries possesses an ordinary potential. The voice then questions how the Luo clan could bear such a child without becoming a laughingstock among other families. Hearing this, the man becomes puzzled by the conversation and wonders what it means for a fetus to have an innate flaw. Then the shocking truth dawns on him. He has somehow been reincarnated into a fantasy world as an unborn child. He sees his mother before him and realizes that he is the very child they are discussing. Elder Zhang appears determined to abandon him, and he begins to understand the cruelty of a world where even an unborn child can be discarded for being weak. The woman turns toward her husband, Tian, and asks if he truly agrees with this decision. But Tian angrily questions how her child with damaged root bones could possibly share the Luo clan's resources and fortune, comparing him to his other wife's fetus, which is considered a celestial blessing. The mother protests, reminding Tian that she was the one who transferred her innate true energy to him when he was injured and unconscious, and that this act caused her own child's root bones to be damaged. However, Tian remains unmoved and gives her only two options: leave the Luo clan or abandon the child. Shocked, the mother is left speechless. Inside her, the fetus wonders what kind of person could force a mother to make such a cruel choice and anxiously waits for her answer. Finally, the mother, whose name is revealed as Jiang Kai, declares that she will leave the Luo clan. Both Tian and the elder are taken aback, but she firmly announces that from this day onward, her life and her child's have nothing to do with the clan. Hearing this, the unborn child silently vows to his mother that even though he is weak and born with damaged roots, he will train diligently and help them regain their honor. At that moment, an electronic voice echoes in his mind. A system called the Late Bloomer System has bound itself to him, recognizing his determination to cultivate. Excited yet confused, he celebrates the sudden appearance of a system but quickly grows frustrated at its name, shouting that he hasn't even been born yet to be called a late bloomer. He soon learns that the system's full name is the System of Late Blooming Greatness, and realizes that it seems to be urging him to strive even before birth. Amused and confused, he wonders whether this system might have appeared 300 years too early. Suddenly, the system projects a vision before him, showing fragments of his future, a harsh and painful path where both he and his mother, Jiang Kai Xin, are mocked and looked down upon for their inability to cultivate. The vision continues to unfold. He watches his half-brother reach enlightenment and achieve the Tao, while he himself struggles to survive, kept alive only by the medicine his mother humbly begged for. The image grows darker as he sees his future self finally awaken the will to resist fate, but only after his mother's death. Overwhelmed by despair and anger, the unborn child shouts for the system to stop showing him this cruel destiny. Realizing that the system had indeed arrived centuries too early, he makes a firm decision. He will change this predetermined path. He swears that his life will not end in failure, that he will turn his fate into glory and become a legend that shakes the heavens. In response, the system releases his first mission, to begin cultivating of his own will and to astonish his mother. The reward offered is the fusion with the archaic sacred body. The fetus is momentarily stunned, but the system explains that this sacred body grants overwhelming physical strength, enough to challenge even the ancient emperors themselves. Encouraged, he decides to take advantage of his time in the womb, using fetal breathing to circulate spiritual energy naturally. His mother suddenly feels something unusual within her body. Alarmed yet astonished, she wonders if her child has truly begun cultivating before birth. Just then, the system announces that the mission has been completed and initiates the fusion process. Golden light surrounds him as the archaic sacred body merges with his essence, activating the legacy of ancient sages. Outside, a mysterious flash resembling lightning fills the sky, while within her consciousness, Jiang Kai-shin sees the visions of towering ancient emperors before whom all heroes seem insignificant. A stream of golden spiritual energy surges through her body, repairing her damaged foundation. Confused, she wonders how such an extraordinary phenomenon could come from the child once declared defective. The system then introduces the structure of cultivation. The three foundational realms, blood transformation, cave heaven, and spirit manifestation, each divided into 10 stages. It adds that achieving certain levels before adulthood marks one as a supreme genius. Those who reach the spirit manifestation realm before maturity and step into the venerable realm are called miracles among miracles, the true embodiments of destiny. Finally, the system displays the child's new status. His name is now Wang. His archaic sacred body has already reached the first level of blood transformation, and in mere moments it surges through the second, third, and fourth stages. With newfound resolve, Ryuk declares that this is the beginning, the first step in rewriting his destiny and defying the fate that once bound him. Elsewhere, the mother arrives at a spacious residence and announces her return to her elder brother and sister-in-law. She is welcomed by her brother, Wang, and his wife, Jiang Shichin. Her brother quickly explains that they had already sought help from a higher sect to find a way to heal her child, since no one dares to provoke the Luo clan directly. Qing responds in a sharp tone, accusing Jiang Kai-shin of returning for assistance only after being cast out by the Luo clan. Her voice carries a mocking edge as she implies that the Luo clan never allowed Jiang Kai-shin to take any of the marriage alliance resources from the Mo clan's legitimate heirs, and that her so-called pride is merely a facade to hide her desperation. Jiang Kai-shin answers quietly, saying that she seeks nothing but her child's safety. Her brother immediately intervenes, angered by his wife's words, and orders her to stop speaking. He assures his sister that the Jiang clan will provide everything necessary to support her and her child. Trying to ease the tension, Wang tells his sister not to take Saiking's harshness to heart, explaining that his wife has a sharp tongue but a kind nature. Jiang Kai-shin smiles faintly, saying she understands her sister-in-law well and holds no resentment. Meanwhile, the unborn child, Wang, observes everything from within the womb. Contrary to his expectations, he realizes that his mother isn't being mistreated. Instead, he feels genuine warmth and acceptance in the Jiang household, something far beyond what he experienced in the Luo clan. His thoughts are soon interrupted when Jiang Kai-shin's parents arrive, announcing their return along with an honored guest, Sage Miao from the Palace of Creation Sage. Wang is momentarily captivated by the sage's extraordinary beauty, thinking that her appearance could belong to the most enchanting figures of a Xianxia world. Suddenly, his system reactivates, displaying a new mission under the title Late Blooming Greatness. Wang deduces that the system must respond automatically when encountering powerful individuals, and concludes that Sage Miao might be his best opportunity. If he can demonstrate his talent early, he believes it will make the clan value his mother more. As Jiang Kai-shin respectfully steps forward to ask the sage for help, the unborn child prepares to impress her using the power of his archaic sacred body. Sage Miao gestures for everyone to wait outside, explaining that she will examine the fetus and its mother alone. She reassures Jiang Kai-shin that she will not use spiritual energy during the examination, as the fetus appears to be fragile. Hearing the word weak, Wang reacts internally with sarcasm, thinking, if she will still call her that once she witnessed the strength of his archaic sacred body. As soon as the sage places her hand on Jiang Kai-shin's wrist, her expression shifts drastically. A powerful ancient aura emanates from within the womb, something primal, as if drawn from the chaotic origins of the world itself. Alarmed, the mother asks what is happening, but the sage, clearly astonished, instead questions her if this child had truly been diagnosed as lacking innate power. Jiang Kai-shin nods, confirming that such was the judgment of the Luo clan's healers. The sage frowns slightly and decides to verify the truth herself. Gathering her energy, she begins to examine the child's internal essence. Inside the womb, Wang senses that the sage is still unconvinced. Determined to show his strength, he commands his archaic sacred body to fully awaken, allowing its immense power to surge outward. The sage pauses, sensing the defiance within him. A faint smile forms on her lips as she remarks that this little one's spirit refuses to yield, and that had she not come by coincidence, the world might have lost an unmatched prodigy. Jiang Kai-shin is left speechless. None of those present are aware of her child's true bone structure, yet the sage has sensed something extraordinary. She then proposes using a special treasure, an artifact said to reveal the truth behind all things, to shed light on the child's essence. Deeply grateful, the mother bows in thanks. When the sage and Jiang Kai-shin step out of the hall, the waiting clan members grow uneasy. They assume that the examination must have ended so soon because the fetus could not be saved. But the sage quickly silences their worries, telling them not to make assumptions. She then delivers astonishing news. The child within Jiang Kai-shin's womb is not only unharmed, but possesses a talent beyond compare. The sage declares that what she has witnessed is genuine, and that she considers it a blessing to have been present for such a revelation. The grandfather, confused and awestruck, asks how it could be possible when everyone was told the child had no natural gift. The sage dismisses that earlier diagnosis, calling it the foolish judgment of a blind doctor. Then, using her treasure, she projects a vision into the air before the Jiang clan. A breathtaking scene unfolds, 9 golden dragons pulling an enormous bronze coffin across the heavens. The sight leaves everyone frozen in disbelief and reverence. The sage explains that even a single one of those sovereign dragons could destroy the entire Jiang clan effortlessly. As the vision continues, the clan members wonder who rests within that massive coffin, until the image reveals a young man bearing a striking resemblance to Jiang Kai-shin. The sage's expression turns solemn. She realizes that the archaic sacred body has reappeared within the Jiang clan and declares that a future heavenly emperor is destined to be born among them. Overcome with emotion, the grandparents burst into tears of joy, thanking the heavens for blessing their lineage. Jiang Kai-shin gazes down at her belly with pride, softly telling her child that he has brought her true honor. Turning to her, the sage speaks plainly, saying she will not waste words on formality. She offers to take the child into her care, to make him her personal disciple at the palace of eternal creation. She promises to guide him herself and nurture him until he becomes a force that shakes the world. The members of the Jiang clan are once again left speechless when they realize what the sage's offer truly means. The position being extended is that of head disciple, a rank so prestigious that even heirs of the great imperial clans would fight desperately to obtain it. Inside the womb, Wang processes this with growing excitement. He knows that the Palace of Creation is a first-rate sect, far surpassing the system's basic requirement of joining a third-rate one. Eagerly, he wonders what kind of reward such an achievement will bring. Jiang Kai-shin bows deeply, expressing her gratitude on behalf of herself and the entire Jiang clan for the immense honor the sage has granted them. Inwardly, she reflects on how drastically her world has changed within a single day. Then, softly in her mind, she asks her unborn child if he too wishes to become the sage's disciple. Sage Meow smiles quietly to herself, thinking how fortunate she was to have followed her instincts and visited the Jiang clan. Had she not done so, she might have missed the discovery of this extraordinary prodigy. At that very moment, Wang's system activates once again, showing him fleeting glimpses of his original tragic fate. Then, with a resonant chime, the system announces the completion of his current mission. Join a third-rate sect or higher. Delighted, Wang celebrates inwardly, thrilled not only by the mission's completion, but also because the Palace of Creation ranks among the world's most powerful sects. Filled with confidence, he tells himself that with the archaic sacred body and a high-level cultivation art, there will be no obstacle he cannot overcome. The system then reveals his reward, a supreme cultivation technique known as the art of the heaven-devouring demon. The name alone leaves him stunned. The system goes on to explain that this technique revolves around drawing spiritual essence from the heavens and earth to form a natural vortex of cultivation. It is an adaptive, evolving art that can heal, refine, and exert overwhelming suppression over other energies. Realizing the magnitude of this gift, Wang resolves not to waste a single moment. He begins cultivating right there within his mother's womb, and in an instant, a golden spiritual current bursts forth from him, swirling through the hall like a living storm. The spectacle leaves everyone present in utter disbelief. Jiang Kai-shin watches in awe, while her brother and sister-in-law stand frozen. Her brother murmurs in shock, wondering aloud how it's even possible for a child to begin cultivation before birth. The grandfather, eyes glistening with emotion, exclaims that the heavens have truly blessed their clan. Meanwhile, Sage Miao observes with deep satisfaction. With a disciple possessing the archaic sacred body, she thinks, no one will ever dare to call her lineage weak again, not even in the grand, immortal palace tournament that will take place 100 years hence. She then speaks, declaring that every new disciple must receive a proper greeting gift from their master. As his new teacher, she will personally bestow a treasure upon him. Inside the womb, Wang feels an unshakable confidence. With his sacred body and the heaven-devouring demon art, he believes that whatever treasure she presents will instantly recognize him as its rightful owner. Wang calmly focuses his mind and spiritually summons the treasure, confident that subduing an ordinary artifact would pose no challenge to him. In response, the treasure instantly moves toward his mother's womb, merging directly with it. The sight leaves the sage stunned, her eyes widening in disbelief at the fact that an unborn child had managed to make a treasure recognize him as its master. But the phenomenon doesn't stop there. Once the system confirms the completion of the mission, Wang mentally issues another command, ordering the treasure, now known as the Heaven and Earth Fire Suppression Armor, to undergo an upgrade. The treasure responds immediately, radiating a powerful light as it transforms and evolves into an innate spirit treasure. Everyone present is left in awe. The clan members can only stare at the glowing aura surrounding Jiang Kai-shin, unable to comprehend how an unborn child could not only subdue, but also elevate a treasure of such magnitude. The sage silently admits that she had intended to assist Wang in fusing with the item herself, yet he had achieved it entirely on his own, and even advanced it beyond her expectations. She concludes that with an innate spirit treasure bound to his soul, no ordinary cultivator in the future will be capable of harming him. Before leaving, Sage Miao announces that she will personally return when Wang reaches the cave heaven realm, to guide him to the sect and lead him into the wider world of cultivation. 3 days later, turmoil strikes again. A squad of soldiers from the Great Xia Divine Dynasty arrives at the Jiang clan's estate, barging straight into the main hall and demanding the presence of the clan's head. Jiang Kai-shin immediately senses their purpose. She realizes they must have learned of her and her child's expulsion from the Luo clan and have come to annul the engagement tied to that connection. Inside the womb, Wang scoffs, recognizing the classic trope of betrayal and arrogance, and silently vows that this dynasty will live to regret its actions the moment he is born. The soldier leading the group steps forward and addresses Wang's uncle, formally reminding him of the marriage agreement that had been established decades earlier. Enraged, the uncle demands to know why they've entered his clan's hall so rudely. The leader introduces himself as General Wui and declares, without hesitation, that the marriage contract has been officially annulled. The uncle's fury erupts. He shouts that it was the Great Xia dynasty who first sought the political alliance, and now they dare to break it so shamelessly, showing no respect whatsoever to the Jiang clan. General Wui coldly replies that word of Jiang Kai-shin's expulsion has spread throughout the land, and that her child, no longer a recognized heir, makes the Jiang clan unworthy of their dynasty's alliance. From within the womb, Wang listens in contempt. He mocks the general's ignorance in his heart and vows that one day this same man will kneel before him, begging him to accept their so-called princess. General Wui continues, saying that their emperor's mercy is the only reason he personally came to deliver the message. Otherwise, the Jiang clan would have been made to crawl to the imperial court to cancel the engagement themselves. He adds arrogantly that their princess deserves an imperial marriage, not a union with a child rumored to possess a broken foundation. The uncle, enraged by the insult, threatens to have General Wui executed for his insolence and for slandering his nephew inside their own hall. The general laughs scornfully and suddenly releases an attack aimed directly at the unborn child, intending to destroy what he calls useless trash. Wang's fury ignites instantly. The moment the strike approaches his mother, a massive spiritual hand materializes out of thin air, effortlessly blocking the general's attack. General Wui recoils in horror and shouts for reinforcements, summoning the Ming elders. Two elderly men appear soon after, their faces twisted with arrogance. They laugh mockingly at the Jiang family's patriarch, claiming they should be grateful for their attention and even offering to train him. General Wui introduces them proudly as the Ming elders, cultivators of Hai standing within the great Xia dynasty's court. Observing quietly from the womb, Wang notes their presence and calmly assesses their strength, acknowledging that these two old ghosts possess cultivation levels that are far from ordinary. The uncle shouted angrily, accusing the great Xia dynasty of joining forces with the infamous and disgraceful elders, questioning whether their dynasty felt no shame. One of the elders replied harshly, asking condescendingly if it was the uncle's turn to speak. The elder attacked, forcing the grandfather to intervene and protect his nephew, but the impact pushed him back as he caught him. Amid the chaos, the other elder took advantage of the distraction and launched a deadly sword strike toward the pregnant Jiang Kai-shin, mocking that the old man could not protect everyone at once. At that moment, Wang's system triggered an alert of a fatal threat and issued an emergency mission to protect his mother's life. Filled with anger, Wang considered attacking a pregnant woman to be the lowest act possible. He activated the heaven-devouring demon art, commanding it to absorb the attack. A vortex formed, drawing in the spiritual energy from the elders' strikes, leaving them shocked and confused as their power suddenly vanished. The grandfather looked around in confusion, wondering who had stepped in to assist the Jiang family. The frightened elders then attacked together, releasing blue ghostly hands. Wang responded by activating his innate spirit treasure, forming the heaven and earth cold flame barrier with the intent to incinerate them. The flames burst forth with immense force, terrifying the elders as they realized they were facing an innate spirit treasure. They could not understand how a small clan like the Jiang could possess such a weapon. One of them shouted for the unknown entity to reveal itself instead of hiding in the shadows. The system then announced the successful completion of the mission to survive a life-and-death situation and granted Wang a reward, the 9-turn Great Mysterious Rebirth Pill. The description explained that this pill could instantly restore spiritual energy after consumption. Feeling reassured, Wang vowed to restore the Jiang clan's honor from that day onward. Meanwhile, far away, Sage Miao sensed the activation of the spirit treasure and was surprised that her disciple had already used it just 3 days after she had left. She focused her spiritual power to observe the situation, and her projection appeared above the Jiang family's hall, demanding to know who the fool was that dared to harm her disciple. She descended powerfully into the hall, declaring that the child before them was the head disciple of the Palace of Eternal Creation, and demanded to know who had given them the courage to attack him. Wang was astonished by his master's sudden appearance, realizing that she must have left an emergency safeguard within the treasure. One of the elders refused to believe her words and struck out at the sage's projection, accusing her of deceit. The sage effortlessly countered the attack, and Wang scoffed inwardly at the arrogance of an ancient emperor daring to challenge an ancient sage. Relieved that his master had intervened, he observed as both elders stood frozen in disbelief. Attempting to recover, one of the elders tried to speak diplomatically, asking the sage to reveal her name so their dynasty could seek her guidance in the future. The sage dismissed him with a cold tone, stating that a fourth-rate ancient emperor was not even qualified to hear her name. At that moment, the Jiang family's grandfather activated the spirit crane that the sage had previously left behind and directed it toward one of the elders, striking him down violently and leaving him bloodied on the floor. General Wui stood in shock, unable to comprehend how a mere projection of divine consciousness could suppress an ancient emperor. He finally realized that this woman truly belonged to the Palace of Eternal Creation, and that the child the Luo clan had abandoned as talentless would, in reality, be entering that very palace. Meanwhile, the fetus Wang thought to himself that it was already far too late for them to regret their choices. The defeated elder urged the general to retreat, while General Wui, pale with fear, looked up at the sage's projection. Unable to believe what he was witnessing, he cursed the Luo clan under his breath for their foolishness in casting away a genius capable of joining the palace of creation, and thus bringing disaster upon the great Xia dynasty. The Zhang family's grandfather then respectfully asked the sage to spare the lives of these people, saying he wanted them to live long enough to witness what kind of miracle his grandson would become in the future. The sage accepted and ordered them to leave alive, telling them to deliver her message to their dynasty, that the marriage contract between the Zhang family and the great Xia dynasty was annulled. Wang felt pleased, wondering whether his master intended to assist him further. However, the sage changed her mind and spoke again, declaring firmly that it was not for them to annul a marriage involving her disciple. She released a powerful wave of energy, knocking the soldiers backward, then threw the annulment document at them, announcing that her disciple was the one rejecting marriage with their dynasty's princess. She shouted at them to leave immediately and warned that if they failed to return the engagement gifts, she would personally come to retrieve them. Terrified and defeated, General Wui had no choice but to agree. After the soldiers departed, the members of the Zhang family bowed respectfully before the sage. The uncle stepped forward first, expressing his deep gratitude, saying that without her intervention and the use of the spirit treasure, the Zhang clan would have faced a calamity. The grandfather followed, offering the family's heartfelt thanks for her great kindness. The sage told them not to dwell on gratitude, explaining that since she had accepted Wang as her disciple, their family's fate was now tied to hers. However, she added that saying she had used the spirit treasure herself was not entirely correct. At that, the spirit crane laughed softly and said its master was too honest to claim credit for what truly belonged to her disciple. The sage then assured the grandfather that the family should continue to provide Wang with every possible resource to aid his future growth. Hearing this, Wang felt moved and thought to himself, "You truly are my real master." Understanding what the sage meant, the grandfather dismissed the others so that he could speak to her in private. Once they were alone, he asked what kind of physical constitution his grandson possessed that allowed him to wield a spirit treasure while still unborn. The sage revealed that the child carried the legendary archaic sacred body, leaving the grandfather completely stunned. She went on to explain that even she did not know how he could already control a treasure in the womb, as the last recorded appearance of such a body was hundreds of thousands of years ago. She added that since the child had already begun cultivating, it was impossible to predict how immense his power would be at birth. Overjoyed, the grandfather exclaimed that heaven had indeed blessed their clan. The sage cautioned him, however, that the archaic sacred body required enormous resources to cultivate properly, and that its foundation must be strengthened carefully before the child entered the palace of creation. The grandfather thanked her for the advice and swore that the Zhang clan would gather all its strength to build a solid foundation for Zhang Wang. Hearing this, the uncle's wife declared happily that the rise of the Zhang clan had finally begun, while the uncle added that they would one day make the Luo clan regret their decision. Meanwhile, within the womb, Wang reflected on everything that had occurred. He realized that this world was truly ruled by power. His master had barely acted, yet her enemies had been utterly crushed. Determined, he vowed that he would not simply start from the same line as others. He would begin his victory from within the womb itself. Later, the family assembled to meet the ancestor of the Zhang clan. The ancestor stated that he was already aware of the child's rare physical constitution. Though such a body held unimaginable potential, it also demanded vast and endless resources. Declaring his resolve, the ancestor announced that he would personally relinquish all of his own cultivation resources to the child. Jiang Kai-shin protested, saying that the ancestor required nearly half of the clan's wealth for his own cultivation, and that giving it all away would mean the entire clan's future would rest solely on this one child. But the ancestor remained firm, insisting that his decision was final. He also handed over the precious resources gifted by Sage Miao. The mother accepted them gratefully on behalf of her son. At that moment, Wang's system issued a new mission: cultivate continuously for 1 month and impress the ancestor. The reward for success was revealed to be the supreme heavenly bone. Wang felt thrilled upon hearing about the new reward. The system explained that the supreme heavenly bone was a power that only appeared in ancient divine beings, and that it granted its bearer a unique innate ability. Confident in his progress, Wang believed that with his current resources and the heaven-devouring demon technique, he could reach the spirit manifestation realm before birth. He thought that achieving such a level as a fetus would be enough to astonish his ancestor, and without delay, he began cultivating once again. A month passed. The ancestor, having spent the entire time guarding the Zhang family's young prodigy to ensure his safety, began to feel restless. He realized that he had been so focused on protection that he had not checked on the boy's cultivation progress. Curious, he finally examined his grandson's level, and was completely stunned to discover that Wang had already reached the peak of the spirit manifestation realm within just 1 month. At that very moment, Wang was reflecting on his own progress, noting that he had reached that peak 3 days earlier. Now, he wondered if he could take the next step and attempt to break through to the venerable realm. As soon as the ancestor made his discovery, the system notified Wang that the Impress the Ancestor mission had been completed. Wang smiled faintly to himself, amused by how easily his ancestor had been impressed. The reward appeared before him, the supreme heavenly bone, taking form as a radiant spiritual skeleton. The immense aura it emitted instantly loosened the bottleneck that had been blocking his advancement. Without delay, the system initiated the fusion process. Seizing the moment, Wang decided to surprise his ancestor even further by borrowing the heavenly bone's power during the fusion to break through to the venerable realm. As the fusion began, he noticed a wave of purple energy radiating from the heavenly bone, and satisfaction filled him. Meanwhile, the ancestor sensed the surge of power and became alarmed, realizing his grandson was attempting a breakthrough. He worried that such a sudden advance could harm the boy's foundation. At the same time, Jiang Kai-shin felt an unfamiliar but powerful energy stirring within her womb. Despite their fears, the breakthrough succeeded smoothly. Wang discovered that the divine ability granted by the supreme heavenly bone was connected to time itself. He acknowledged that he might have been too hasty, knowing the venerable realm should have been his limit at this stage. However, with control over time, he realized he could now slow its flow, allowing him to continue progressing even before his birth. The ancestor felt awe wash over him as an overwhelming aura filled the hall, carrying traces of the laws of time. He admitted to himself that his grandson's abilities were now beyond his comprehension, even before entering the world. Laughing joyfully, he once again declared that heaven had truly blessed the Zhang family. A few months later, Jiang Kai-shin went into labor. Her family waited anxiously outside the room for 3 long hours as the midwife urged her to hold on. At the moment of his birth, Wang's system announced that he had reached the innate ancient immortal realm. His arrival triggered a massive celestial phenomenon that drew eminent figures from across the lands, who descended from the clouds to offer their congratulations. Observers marveled that an ordinary true immortal could cause such wonders. One of them realized the spectacle must be connected to the child the great Xia dynasty had rejected. A wiser onlooker dismissed that as old gossip, and informed the crowd that the Zhang family's infant was exceptional enough to have been accepted as a disciple by a sage of the palace of eternal creation while still in the womb. Before long, the emperor of the great Xia dynasty himself appeared, compelled to attend by the commotion. More legendary portents manifested in succession: the golden lotus of the bitter sea, brilliant rivers and mountains, and then radiant stars strewn across the sky. The emperor recognized the final sign, the yin-yang life and death diagram, a phenomenon not witnessed in 1,000 years, yet the newborn was not finished. Wang combined all 5 great omens into a single, overwhelming vision, and the immortal king descended from the 9 heavens. The Zhang clan's ancestor wept with pride, declaring that his grandson Wang carried the bearing of a future great emperor. The emperor of the great Xia dynasty felt deep regret, briefly wishing the child had been born to his own house, and considering whether to reverse the marriage arrangement, though he ultimately rejected the idea out of shame. Meanwhile, Jiang Kai-shin held her son and told him he was her true pride. Observers remarked that the Luo clan must now feel bitter remorse. But the emperor drew a darker conclusion. Having offended such a prodigy, their only remaining option might be to eliminate him in his cradle. 5 years later, Wang appeared as a young child sitting in meditation, calmly using his ability to slow the flow of time. Although he had already reached the peak of the ancient king realm, he still felt that his progress was far too slow. His concentration was soon interrupted by a few overly enthusiastic attendants who urged him to rest and offered him immortal fruit. Annoyed by their excitement, Wang ended his meditation and stood to greet his ancestor, who had been waiting for him. The ancestor praised him warmly, remarking that at just 5 years old, Wang had already achieved the peak of the ancient king realm, and that in only a few more years, even he might be unable to keep up with the boy's growth. Wang, however, replied humbly, explaining that he had not made any progress for over a month and was currently stuck at a bottleneck. In truth, Wang was facing a deeper problem. A year earlier, his system had assigned him a mission requiring him to enter a secret realm. However, leaving the clan was impossible because both the Great Xia dynasty and the Luo clan had issued kill orders against him. To make matters worse, Wang had begun to sense a hidden danger within the Jiang clan itself. During training one day, he felt a dark, venomous aura emanating from the clan's back mountain. Following the source of the disturbance, he discovered the presence of a powerful, malevolent entity. Realizing that his current strength was far from enough to confront it, he investigated further and found a demon suppression array, a formation meant to seal such threats. However, even this powerful seal showed signs of weakening. With a dangerous being sealed nearby and his enemies outside plotting his death, Wang concluded that his current strength was nowhere near sufficient. He decided he had to find a secret realm to accelerate his growth. Returning to his conversation with his ancestor, Wang mentioned that he had sensed something ominous in the back mountain. The ancestor confirmed he had noticed it as well and assured him that under normal circumstances, the seal would hold. However, before he could finish speaking, a clan member rushed in with alarming news. A sage's secret realm had appeared in the Eastern Sea, and the Great Xia dynasty and the Luo clan had already formed an alliance to seize control of it. The ancestor immediately summoned a clan meeting. Wang insisted on taking part, stating that since he had already reached the ancient king realm, he was qualified to attend. The ancestor agreed and allowed him to join. When the meeting began, the ancestor opened by saying that the first matter to discuss concerned his grandson. Wang stood before the assembly and explained that although he had reached the peak of his realm months ago, he had been unable to advance further and therefore wished to leave the clan to gain real-world experience. After confirming his cultivation level, the elders expressed admiration for his astonishing progress, but unanimously opposed the idea of him leaving. They argued that the outside world was too dangerous and that their enemies had clearly set a trap for him. The ancestor proposed an alternative, to acquire a break the ancient pill to help him overcome his bottleneck instead of letting him take such a risk. The uncle immediately supported this suggestion. Wang, however, felt that their excessive concern and admiration had become a cage, holding back his growth. Interrupting the discussion, Wang asked them to listen. He acknowledged their worries but questioned how he could ever become stronger if he continued to hide behind the clan whenever danger appeared. He admitted that even though he had reached the peak of his realm, he had never once faced a true life-and-death battle. He reminded them of the treasure his master had given him, an artifact so powerful that even an ancient emperor would struggle to capture him. With firm determination, he pleaded with them to allow him to leave and temper himself in the outside world. After hearing his reasoning, the uncle sighed and commented that none of them had faced such dangers at the age of 5. The ancestor silently reflected that Wang had already surpassed most of them in cultivation and thus deserved the right to make his own choices. Reluctantly, he agreed, though not without warning him first. He told Wang that the geniuses of the Luo clan and the Great Xia dynasty had already entered the newly discovered secret realm, and that they had prepared an ambush for him, ancient emperors among them. ready to strike the moment his identity was exposed. Wang replied with calm confidence, asking disdainfully about if an ancient emperor was really something to fear. The ancestor laughed heartily, clearly impressed by his grandson's fearless spirit, and declared that this was the true pride of their clan. He granted Wang permission to leave, but reminded him to be cautious. Wang thanked him sincerely before setting off without delay. From a distance, his mother watched him depart, silently praying for his safe return. Wang arrived at the entrance of the secret realm and noticed that the area was full of activity and excitement. To gather some information, he approached a nearby cultivator and politely asked whether this was the ancient sage's secret realm. The man looked irritated at first, but when his eyes fell on Wang's fine clothes, he quickly realized this was no ordinary youth, likely a young master from an influential clan. His tone changed immediately as he confirmed that it was indeed the place. Wang modestly introduced himself as a disciple from a small, humble sect before asking why so many children and young cultivators had gathered there. The man replied bitterly that the great Xia dynasty and the Luo clan had monopolized the secret realm, allowing only participants under the age of 18 to enter. Hearing this, Wang quietly wondered which so-called geniuses his enemies had sent this time. Before long, a delegation from the great Xia divine dynasty arrived. At its head was the Grand Princess Xia Minqian, whose beauty left the onlookers speechless. One of her attendants began to flatter her while mocking the other participants, but the princess calmly stopped her, reminding her not to underestimate anyone. She mentioned two exceptional competitors in particular, the mysterious son of the young Luo clan leader and the Chilean son of the Zhang clan. Her tone carried a trace of regret, as she remarked that it was unfortunate for their dynasty to have lost such a strong ally. The attendant, embarrassed, muttered that the blame lay with the arrogant General Wu Kai. However, the princess cut her off sharply, telling her to learn from the mistake instead of dwelling on it. Both attendants bowed and agreed. From a distance, Wang observed the princess quietly. He admired her calm and grace, noting that she carried none of the arrogance or cruelty shown by General Wu Kai when he had insulted his family. A moment later, the Luo clan made their entrance, arriving in a grand carriage surrounded by crackling lightning. Seeing them, Wang smiled faintly, thinking that he had almost feared they might not appear. An elder of the Luo clan stepped forward and introduced their chosen participant, Luo Dong, to the Grand Princess. Luo Dong attempted to greet her with confidence, but the princess completely ignored him and instead spoke directly to the female elder beside him, suggesting that their groups cooperate to open the secret realm. Luo Dong's smile faltered, and he turned away, humiliated and angry. The elders from both factions began their preparations, joining forces to open the gate of the ancient sage's secret realm. Once the barrier started to part, all young participants were instructed to enter at once. Wang stepped forward, his expression calm but resolute, thinking to himself that the moment had come. It was time for the Luo clan to pay for what they had done. As Wang approached the gate, the female elder of the Luo clan, Wan Qi, caught sight of him. Her eyes narrowed as she noticed his resemblance to Zhang Kai-shin. Realizing the connection, she quickly deduced that he must be the Zhang clan's prodigy and was astonished that he had the nerve to appear in such a dangerous place. She tried to block his path, but Wang effortlessly sidestepped her and entered the secret realm without hesitation. Outside, Elder Wan Qi immediately decided to report his presence to her clan. With a cold expression, she swore that since Wang had dared to come here, he would not be leaving alive. Meanwhile, inside the secret realm, Wang began his exploration. He soon encountered several spiritual beasts and quickly assessed that they were made entirely of condensed spiritual energy. Smiling faintly, he thought that these creatures had walked right into his trap. Though he defeated them with ease, he noted that they posed little challenge and provided no real benefit. His system's rewards remained far more valuable. Still, Wang stayed alert. He knew that both the Luo clan and the great Xia dynasty were likely monitoring his every move and preparing an ambush for him once he left. That knowledge strengthened his resolve to use this opportunity to grow stronger. His current power, he thought, would not be enough to deal with what awaited him outside. Then his system suddenly chimed, announcing the completion of the Locate the Ancient Sage's Secret Realm mission. The reward was astonishing, an infusion of 100 years of cultivation. Overjoyed, Wang immediately sat down in meditation to absorb the immense energy pouring into him. Moments later, a brilliant pillar of golden light erupted from his body, shooting straight into the sky. The phenomenon caught the attention of every young cultivator in the secret realm. As the golden radiance expanded, the onlookers rushed toward the source, expecting the birth of a divine treasure. However, when they arrived, they realized what they were witnessing was no treasure manifestation. It was a celestial thunder tribulation, one unlike any other. Someone among them gasped, recognizing it as a ninefold thunder tribulation compressed into a single devastating strike, a phenomenon rarely seen even in ancient times. Luo Dong, the Luo clan's so-called prodigy, saw this as a chance to impress Princess Meng. He turned to her eagerly and suggested that they join forces to claim whatever treasure was about to appear. The princess, however, remained cautious, warning him that the scale of this tribulation was far beyond what they could predict. Luo Dong ignored her concern, insisting that they act quickly, while inwardly thinking that winning the favor of this remarkable woman was worth any risk. At the center of the raging storm, Wang stood firm, facing the celestial tribulation head-on. The lightning gathered into the shape of a massive palace, radiating destructive power. The first bolt struck him with immense force, yet Wang merely scoffed at its weakness before activating the heaven-devouring demon art to absorb its energy. As the tribulation intensified, a towering armored warrior of lightning emerged from within the storm. The figure attacked relentlessly, but Wang met each strike with ease, deflecting the blows and countering with flawless precision. When the lightning warrior unleashed a violent surge of energy in frustration, Wang responded by executing his clan's strongest sword technique, cutting through the storm and delivering a decisive blow. From a distance, the other cultivators watched in disbelief. None could understand what kind of being could provoke such a terrifying thunder tribulation. Then, through the flashing light, someone spotted a human silhouette at the heart of the tempest. Gasps spread through the crowd as Princess Meng reached a shocking conclusion. Someone was undergoing a tribulation to ascend to the ancient Emperor realm. Given that the secret realm only allowed those under 18, it meant that the person achieving this was still a youth, something unheard of in all of history. Luo Dong stared at the storm, realizing that whoever was inside had taken the full force of the lightning yet remained unscathed. A chill ran through him as he decided that such a person would become a future calamity if allowed to live. Concealing his murderous intent, he resolved to strike during the chaos, hopping to assassinate the youth while the thunder covered his actions. The tribulation grew stronger, its force shaking the entire realm. The sky cracked apart and the earth trembled as bolts of energy threatened to tear the space itself. Panicked cultivators scattered in all directions, fleeing for their lives. Amid the chaos, Luo Dong rushed forward to shield Princess Meng from the shockwave. She thanked him calmly for his help. When the storm finally subsided, the mysterious figure at its center was nowhere to be seen. Believing he had perished during the trial, the onlookers assumed his body and soul had both been obliterated. Seizing the moment, Luo Dong once again tried to persuade the princess to form an alliance with him, arguing that the secret realm was too dangerous and that they should look out for each other. The princess declined politely, explaining that she already had a team. With a faint hint of sarcasm, she added that his strength was far too overwhelming to join a group as modest as hers. Her words left Luo Dong humiliated. Rage burned inside him as he swore that Princess Meng would one day be his, and no one else would dare to refuse him. Yet even as he fumed, the princess's eyes lingered briefly on the spot where the tribulation had ended. She found herself quietly impressed by the mysterious young man's composure and striking appearance. Sitting quietly, Wang thought about how he needed to find new martial techniques. Continuing to use his clan's signature skills would make it too easy for others to identify him. As he pondered, the princess approached, catching his attention. Wang was momentarily surprised by her presence and quickly recognized that she was from the Xia dynasty, though it seemed she hadn't recognized him. She asked playfully if he was afraid of her. Wang decided to act the part of an innocent boy, smiling shyly and complimenting her beauty. His charm worked. She laughed softly, pinched his cheek, and praised his courage. Pretending to be timid, Wang invented a story about how his clan had fallen and how he had entered the secret realm out of desperation, lacking cultivation resources. Moved by his words, Princess Meng pitied him and invited him to join her group for safety. Wang accepted her offer with feigned excitement. Meanwhile, Luo Dong was consumed by anger and jealousy as he watched them from a distance. Furious that this mysterious boy had disrupted his plans with the princess, he began to secretly track her team. Not long after, a spiritual wolf leapt out from the shadows to attack. Wang effortlessly caught its strike with one hand, shocking the princess, who was astonished by his physical strength. Wang, inwardly amused, realized that even while holding back, he had revealed more power than he intended. At the same time, he could sense that Luo Dong was still following them. Eventually, Luo Dong revealed himself, declaring that he had entered the secret realm solely for the princess. He unleashed a powerful artifact, the ancient trapping pearl, in an attempt to imprison her. Wang merely scoffed inwardly at the artifact's strength, finding it unimpressive. Luo Dong, grinning maliciously, revealed his lustful intent and his desire for her rare, exquisite Nine-yin body, a revelation that piqued Wang's interest. Later, as the group rested around a campfire, Wang continued to play his role. He looked up at the princess with wide, innocent eyes and asked timidly if he could sleep near her because he felt scared. Amused, the princess teased him, asking how a little monster, capable of tearing apart spiritual beasts, could possibly be frightened. Wang insisted that he truly was and then, pretending to be serious, asked whether she had a Tao companion. The princess's expression dimmed slightly as she replied that she did not. Wang acted surprised, asking how someone as beautiful and noble as Princess Meng could have no suitors. She explained that every man who approached her carried ulterior motives and impure desires. Curious, Wang asked what kind of motives she meant. With a touch of hesitation, she confided in him, asking if he had ever heard of the exquisite Nine-yin body. She explained that this physique was highly coveted by those who practiced dual cultivation, as it could greatly enhance their strength. For that reason, she said, corrupt cultivators often hunted women with this body, using them as mere vessels for their advancement. Feigning anger, Wang clenched his fist and declared that he would protect her from anyone who dared to approach her with bad intentions. The princess smiled at his display of childish bravery and told him to rest as they sat beside the fire. However, Wang could still sense Luo Dong lurking nearby, watching from the darkness. Irritated by the constant surveillance, he decided it was time to get rid of that pest once and for all. Standing up, he quietly left the camp to draw Luo Dong away. Noticing his absence, the princess hurried after him, gently scolding him for being reckless and wandering off alone. As Wang began to apologize, Luo Dong, who had been observing them with growing jealousy, finally stepped out of hiding and attacked, shouting furiously that Wang was seeking death. Wang turned toward Luo Dong with a calm expression and said evenly that he had been waiting for him. Luo Dong immediately launched an attack, but before the strike could land, Princess Meng stepped in front of Wang, demanding to know what Luo Dong intended to do. Luo Dong let out a dark laugh and replied that they would find out soon enough. Without another word, he hurled the ancient trapping pearl at them, and in an instant, both Wang and the princess were sealed inside its spatial barrier. Furious, the princess shouted that her dynasty would never forgive him for this act and ordered him to release them immediately if he didn't want to provoke a war. Luo Dong ignored her threats with a smug smile and told her to go ahead and try. The princess glared at him coldly, warning that he would come to regret his arrogance. She then attempted to activate her dynasty's rescue seal, but the sigil flickered weakly and shattered within the pearl's domain. Luo Dong sneered, explaining that the artifact had been personally refined by his ancestor, Wan Qi, who was an expert in the laws of space. He went on to boast that the pearl completely nullified spiritual energy operations for anyone below the ancient emperor realm, advising her to stop struggling and surrender quietly. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, the princess quickly formulated a plan. Leaning close to Wang, She whispered that she would use a special technique to send him out of the secret realm and ordered him to call upon her dynasty's forces the moment he escaped. Before she could act, however, Luo Dong turned his attention toward Wang. With a mocking grin, he said that he must be the abandoned child of the Luo clan from 5 years ago. The princess looked at him in confusion, not understanding what he meant. Wang remained calm and answered in a measured voice, clarifying 2 things. First, he stated firmly that he had no connection whatsoever with that accursed Luo clan, and that his name was Wang. Second, with a faint smirk, he asked Luo Dong sarcastically if he truly believed the battle had already been decided. Luo Dong laughed mockingly, ridiculing Wang for boasting even while standing at the edge of death. He declared that he would personally end Wang's life on behalf of his clan. The princess, still struggling against the pearl's oppressive power, shouted that he was a shameless demon. Convinced that escape was impossible, she began to consider sacrificing herself to create an opening for Wang to flee and bring reinforcements. But Wang immediately rejected her idea. Telling her to rest, he said that he had a much simpler solution. Slowly, he rose into the air, surrounded by a blinding golden aura. Luo Dong froze, stunned that Wang could still use spiritual energy inside the ancient trapping pearl. Wang looked down at the artifact with disdain, calling it a broken bead. With a flick of his hand, the confining power around them shattered like glass. In an instant, he appeared before Luo Dong and said coolly that he didn't like being looked down upon. Then he simply reached out and tapped Luo Dong's forehead with one finger. That single touch caused Luo Dong's spiritual energy to collapse entirely, and the sound of breaking bones echoed through the space. He fell to the ground in agony, completely helpless. The princess stared in disbelief as Luo Dong writhed, screaming that such a thing was impossible. Standing over him, Wang asked sarcastically whether he was now satisfied with the power of the abandoned child of the Luo clan. Luo Dong, terrified, begged for his life, swearing that he would never reveal what had happened. Wang looked down at him with contempt and asked if he truly thought he feared the Luo clan. He declared that before reaching adulthood, he would visit them personally, but for now, he would take a little interest. He pressed his palm toward Luo Dong's chest, planting a glowing golden core of energy within him. Luo Dong's eyes widened in horror as he asked what Wang had done. Wang replied calmly that he was not bloodthirsty. His mother had taught him the value of mercy. Therefore, he would give him a chance. If he could reach his ancestor and have the golden core removed within the time it takes 3 sticks of incense to burn, he might live. The princess warned Wang that letting Luo Dong go would only invite disaster for him and the Jiang family. Wang reassured her with a faint smile, saying that the little thief wouldn't get far. As Luo Dong staggered away, screaming threats of revenge and vowing to destroy the Jiang clan and crush every bone in Wang's body, Wang calmly began to count down from 3. When he reached 1, a thunderous explosion erupted in the distance, and Luo Dong's body was obliterated. Wang turned to the stunned princess and smiled casually, saying that he had been joking about showing mercy, and that he rarely followed his mother's advice anyway. After watching what happened, Princess Minqian confirmed to herself that this truly was the Jiang clan's divine child. She recalled her father's lingering regret about breaking the engagement and thought this encounter might offer a way to make amends. The 2 went together to the site of the explosion. Wang downplayed the lofty label, saying his cultivation had been strong from birth and that he had only caused a commotion. The princess then asked if he had been responsible for the thunder tribulation that had torn the secret realm apart. He answered calmly that he had indeed caused it, adding that he had not expected a routine tribulation to break through to the peak of the ancient emperor realm and stir so much trouble. He sighed that heaven was envious of great talent. The princess was taken aback by both his power and his composure, struck by the thought that he seemed like an ancient god in mortal form and wondering what he might become. She chastised herself for indulging such thoughts. Noticing her silence, Wang asked if she was upset and confessed that he had deliberately kept her close earlier to use as bait and draw out Luo Dong. She told him she was not petty or angry. Rather, she should thank him for removing a hidden danger. Wang relaxed visibly at that. Later, by the campfire, the princess reflected on the rumors that the Jang clan's son might be a reincarnation of a great ancient emperor and felt those rumors now had some basis. She admired his talent, craftiness, and eloquence, concluding that few of his generation could match him. Wang broke her train of thought and returned to his innocent act, asking who would be lucky enough to marry Big Sister Ming in the future. The question embarrassed her, and she found his odd remarks puzzling. Their conversation then turned serious. The princess warned him that he underestimated the Luo clan's resolve. Luo Dong was of direct lineage, and their ancestors would not let the matter drop. She reminded Wang of the ambush the Great Xia dynasty and the Luo clan had prepared outside the secret realm. Wang replied casually that he could kill Luo Dong with a single palm strike. The princess challenged his confidence, asking what he would do when the Luo clan's true power descended on him. She explained that her clan had many experts who could aid his escape, and then offered him a spiritual treasure from her father that could conceal his aura. She insisted he accept it, saying he had helped her, and that the Great Xia dynasty might not always remain an enemy. Wang accepted the gift but made his stance clear. Their bond was personal, not political. He harbored no goodwill toward her dynasty, and he intended to make General Wui pay for insulting his mother and wronging his clan. Unexpectedly, the princess asked him what he would do if she handed General Wui over to Wang and his family. Wang wondered whether Princess Minqian really had the authority to hand over General Wui. The princess replied that her father had been deceived by the Luo clan, which was why he had considered breaking the engagement. But if they surrendered the general, and it would ease relations between the factions, then the Great Xia dynasty would likely accept that. She also prepared to offer Wang her jade pendant as part of that concession. Wang observed that the princess believed in him because she had seen a glimpse of his power at the peak of the ancient emperor realm, something her father had never witnessed. To most people, he remained only the abandoned child of the Luo clan, someone they would never take seriously. When the princess asked the boy to speak clearly, and if he was also refusing the jade pendant, Wang explained about why he hesitated in taking it. He had suffered a great deal of suffering, and he did not want his friend, the eldest princess, watched by all, to endure similar pain or be given cause to regret her choice. Accepting such a gift lightly would cost him his self-respect. The princess blushed when he called her a friend. Wang, already resolved, said he understood her intention, and that because of that he could not accept the pendant casually. He wanted to first prove her judgment right to the world. Only then would he accept the pendant with honor. The princess rose quickly, nodding that even at a young age he spoke smoothly and that his excuses always hid a principle. Wang told her to wait. He promised that the whole Great Xia dynasty would learn his name. He then produced the divine item his master had given him and used it to contact her. The great sage at first mocked him for forgetting her in good times and calling when trouble arose, but Wang had a single request. He explained that during a past fight with someone from the Luo clan, the remains left behind suggested the involvement of a fourth-level ancient emperor. If that trail led back to the Luo clan, an ancient sage from their side would surely appear. Wang asked his master to set up a formation to hide their location from such detection for the duration of one incense stick. Although the master teased him, she recognized his talent and agreed to help. With assistance arranged, Wang rose into the air and announced to the cultivators in the secret realm that he would purge the place. He warned that he would use his full strength and could not guarantee anyone's safety. He ordered everyone to ascend and assemble behind him within a quarter of an hour, and warned that those who refused would bear the consequences. The scene shifted to the ground where Princess Meng instructed everyone from the Great Xia dynasty to ascend into the sky with her if they wished to survive. Some of the cultivators hesitated, skeptical of following the command of a 5-year-old child. Seeing their hesitation, the princess turned slightly, a faint, unsettling smile crossing her lips as she asked if anyone dared to question the judgment of the eldest princess. Her tone alone silenced all doubt, and the group quickly took to the air, gathering behind Wang. Others observing the situation decided to follow as well. They had worked hard to explore the secret realm and did not want to risk everything by staying behind. They reasoned that if even the eldest princess of the Great Xia dynasty was willing to obey the boy, then it must be the right choice. However, several cultivators from the Luo clan remained arrogant. They knew the rumors that Wang was the abandoned child of their clan, supposedly born with a damaged foundation, and they dismissed him with scorn. Though they had also heard the legend that at his birth he had reached the realm of an innate true immortal, they doubted it was true. One woman from the Luo clan even insulted the princess, shouting that she had flown into the sky out of fear, and that such cowardice would prevent her from ever attaining the great Tao. Meanwhile, high above, Wang was already prepared. He looked down coldly and said that despite being given time, they seemed eager for their own destruction. Worse, they had insulted his friend, calling her a coward unworthy of the great Tao. For that, he declared, they would now face the price. Wang summoned his energy, and a colossal sword of pure spiritual power materialized in the air. He looked at it calmly, wondering aloud how those ignorant fools expected to attain the Tao beneath his blade. He then ordered his soul to sever the entire secret realm. The energy sword descended, tearing through space and time as it struck the ground. The impact fractured the realm itself. Cracks spread everywhere as the entire dimension began to collapse. Spiritual beasts and ancient monsters burst free, and those who had defied his warning tried desperately to resist the blow, but they were instantly destroyed. The cultivators who had followed Wang watched in stunned silence, unable to believe such immense power could come from a child. The princess, equally astonished, realized that this was the power Wang had intended to demonstrate to her father. She then suddenly realized her mistake. She had forgotten to activate the recording stone to capture the event. When the chaos subsided and the secret realm fully collapsed, Wang gathered the vast spiritual energy that remained, absorbing it until his strength was completely restored. He turned to everyone who had followed him and thanked them for their trust, assuring them that he was not greedy and would share the spiritual energy fairly among them. Grateful, the cultivators accepted his generosity and praised the young prodigy's magnanimity. Wang then called out to Princess Meng, telling her that he had already set aside a portion of the spiritual energy for her advancement. The princess blushed and playfully scolded him, asking why she should accept his spiritual energy when he had refused her jade pendant earlier. Wang smiled faintly and told her not to be impatient. He asked her to take out the recording stone and hold it tightly, because what was coming next, he said, would be the true event worth recording. The scene shifted back to the mortal world as the secret realm's rift tore open in time, an event only possible by someone at the immortal emperor level. No one expected an immortal emperor to be inside the secret realm, so the occurrence shocked everyone. An elderly woman of the Luo clan guessed wildly that perhaps it was Luo Dong, who had used the princess's Nine-yin body to force a breakthrough and reach immortal emperor, convinced heaven favored the Luo clan. But the outcome was the opposite. Both Princess Meng and Wang emerged from the rift together. The old woman was stunned that Wang had dared to enter the secret realm at all, disregarding the Luo clan's warnings. Wang checked if the princess was ready. She immediately ordered all troops of the Great Xia divine dynasty to retreat. The commanders were stunned, and one sent a telepathic question asking whether Wang had taken the princess hostage. She reassured him, saying she had given the order precisely so everyone could be protected. Understanding this, the commander ordered the Great Xia forces to withdraw, and within seconds they began to disappear, leaving the Luo clan in shock. The old woman cursed Wang, accusing him of hiding behind the princess for safety, but she remained certain that since he had come to the secret realm, no one could save him. Wang had expected such behavior from the scheming Luo clan. Because the clan itself had personally provoked him, he refused to be cowed. The old woman declared they didn't need the Great Xia's help to deal with a 5-year-old and urged her people to seize him at once. They started running toward Wang to capture him. At that moment, some Luo clan members who had accompanied the assault tried to intervene, arguing they should stop the ambush and let the princess and the child leave first. The old woman ignored them, grabbing one by the throat and throwing him down. Seeing this, the others realized their mistake and fled back toward the secret realm. Wang and Princess Meng watched the ruthless elder. She told Wang to stop dreaming. Even if the two great Xia generals intervened, the old woman had already reached the fourth heaven of the immortal emperor realm, making the generals no match for her. She demanded Luo Dong's location, promising to leave them alone if they told her. Wang only smiled, produced a small pouch, and suggested there might still be some of Luo Dong's remains inside, something she could collect as a keepsake. Enraged, the old woman threatened to grind Wang's bones to dust. Wang remained calm. He lit an incense stick and handed it to the princess, saying the time a single stick took to burn was how long their enemies had left to live. The old woman lunged at him. The great sage immediately acted, summoning the shadow-shifting spirit sealing formation, binding the entire courtyard with magical chains. The Luo elder stared in disbelief at the formation's power. When the sealing completed, Wang smiled, knowing the moment had come for the Luo clan's aggressors to fall. As Wang unleashed curses at his enemies, he activated the heaven-devouring demon art, letting its full might erupt outward. A massive swirl of blue spiritual energy burst open above the battlefield, spreading so quickly that the Luo clan soldiers fell into chaos. Many screamed as they felt their strength being ripped out of their bodies, their warhorses collapsing, and their chariots dragged helplessly toward the heart of the vortex. Nothing in its path was spared, and panic overtook the enemy ranks. Even Elder Luo's followers, usually proud and stubborn, began shouting desperately for her to intervene, unable to withstand the terrifying pull any longer. The elder herself stared wide-eyed at the spectacle, shaken by the realization that the child she had been mocking was already standing at the peak of the immortal emperor realm. Accepting that she was not a match for him, she decided that the only hope for her clan was to escape and warn their old ancestor before this 5-year-old monster grew even stronger. Wang watched her attempt to flee and remarked to Princess Meng with a faint, amused shrug that he had expected her to at least struggle a bit before running. While she rushed toward the boundary of Sage Miao's formation, she muttered bitterly to herself, resenting the fate that let her cultivate for centuries just to reach the fourth heaven, while this child had surpassed her before even growing up. But she got no further. Wang appeared before her in a single instant, moving so fast that even the elder froze, unable to understand how he had crossed that distance. He asked her almost casually what she was rushing toward. Driven to desperation, she attacked wildly, demanding he stop being arrogant, but Wang intercepted her arms with effortless ease and reminded her that arrogance required talent, something she had shown very little of. In the next moment, the bones in her arms shattered under his grip, and her scream echoed across the battlefield. Mercy, however, was not his intention for long. Out of consideration for her age, he decided to bring it to an end quickly and summoned the Jiang family's 9 Heaven Sword Light. She barely had time to plead before the massive golden blade descended, striking the ground and wiping out her existence entirely. From far away, the retreating Great Xia troops watched in disbelief, realizing that if they had remained any longer, they would have met the same fate. Those who had followed Wang's instructions earlier stared at him with awe, finally understanding that the child who caused the heavenly tribulation inside the secret realm had been Wang himself. As Wang flew toward the Great Xia vessel, General Shah saw him approach and struggled to accept what he was witnessing. It seemed impossible that the outcast child of the Luo clan, someone barely 5 years old, could possess the strength of a peak immortal emperor. He cursed the Luo clan internally for hiding the truth. Once Wang landed aboard the ship, he bowed politely to the elders and explained that he had been occupied dealing with the ones who insulted his mother, and he apologized if his manners had slipped. The general quickly reassured him, addressing him as young Master Jiang, and saying that the stories of his talent had clearly underestimated him. He then noticed Princess Meng holding up a spirit stone, quietly recording the entire scene, and asked her why she was doing so. Wang responded himself, saying that the recording was meant for a certain emperor who needed clarification about a certain marriage matter. He then asked the princess for the jade pendant she had offered earlier. When she hesitated, unsure if he wanted it now, he simply nodded. With the pendant now in hand, he lifted the spirit stone and spoke as though addressing someone standing directly before him. He stated that he would be keeping the eldest princess's pendant, and that it should be taken as proof that the marriage agreement between them had been restored. He then added, with complete seriousness, that on the day he arrived to present his betrothal gifts, he expected every person involved in the earlier cancellation to be tied up outside the palace gates, something he considered an appropriate return courtesy. The princess stared at Wang in confusion, unsure what he meant with his talk of betrothal gifts and return offerings when he was still just a young child. Wang simply adopted a harmless expression, admitted he was speaking out of turn, and casually addressed her as elder sister Xia to soften the moment. Then, turning toward the generals, he requested that they safely escort the grand princess back to the divine dynasty. Before he departed, the princess handed the jade pendant back to him. She carefully explained that once he infused it with spiritual energy, it would conceal his aura completely for 6 hours, and she urged him to use it wisely if he needed to escape. Wang sent a quick message to his master and his thoughts. The sage answered that his performance had been acceptable, but reminded him the incense stick marking the duration of the protective formation was nearly burnt out. Wang reassured her confidently, nodding that he had already planned his retreat. He then bid the princess farewell, telling her he would be leaving and that their next meeting would be during the great competition of the immortal palace. She, however, urged him anxiously to focus on surviving this ordeal first and insisted he leave at once. After he vanished from sight, she ordered that their group return immediately, already tense about what the Luo clan's retaliation might look like. As the great Xia ships took off, a violent thunderstorm ripped across the sky. A soldier shouted that a terrifying aura was approaching, and another recognized it instantly, the old ancestor of the Luo clan. General Sha confirmed the identity at once. Princess Meng stepped forward and addressed him as Sage Luo, asking why he was attacking their divine vessel without justification and reminding him of the long-standing alliance between their forces. The enraged elder ignored her courtesy and demanded to know what had occurred inside the secret realm, revealing that the soul lamps of Luo Daetong, Luo Dong, and Elder Luo Wanu had all gone dark. The princess answered sharply, questioning his nerve for demanding explanations from her, especially when she had no obligation to report anything to the Luo clan. His fury deepened as he demanded again to know who the killer was. General Sha stepped in and warned him not to overstep, declaring that one more move would be taken as an act of war against the great Xia dynasty. Soldiers lined the deck with raised spears, shouting in unison as the tension mounted. Luo Tangkung dismissed the general as a rude subordinate, prompting the princess to shout his full name and accuse him of recklessly provoking a conflict between the Luo clan and the Xia dynasty. He asked for the final time who had destroyed his people. She shot back that the Luo clan had become audacious, bullying the weak and acting without thought, and that she already knew the killer, but he was welcome to try forcing it out of her. Enraged, Luo Tangkung threatened that if she refused to speak, he would drag the truth out himself. She answered that she had no fear of him and ordered her generals to invoke the imperial seal. The generals obeyed immediately, joining her in a ritual that summoned a colossal golden dragon, the manifestation of the dynasty's authority. The Luo clan ancestor froze in shock, wondering how the emperor had permitted his daughter to wield something so powerful. Feeling the crushing pressure of the dynasty's dragon vein, he realized he could not confront the entire divine lineage alone. With the dragon's power behind her, the princess reminded him that the imperial clan had never bowed to an enemy. She warned that if he continued obstructing their path, she would personally claim his head even if it cost her divine soul, and she granted him one final chance to withdraw. Grinding his teeth, Luo Tangkung declared that the matter was far from over. He promised that the Luo clan would not forget this day's humiliation and then retreated. The moment he left, the princess nearly collapsed from exhaustion. The generals rushed to steady her, urging her to rest and nodding that forcefully activating the imperial seal placed tremendous strain on her body. She reassured them that she had held back its full might and that her soul was unharmed. She had simply depleted her spiritual energy and needed time to recover. As she regained her breath, she reflected bitterly on the Luo clan's growing arrogance, acting as though they ruled the entire desolate, ancient, immortal realm. She knew they would not accept the loss of so many of their people quietly. Holding the spirit stone that had recorded everything inside the secret realm, she felt certain that once her father viewed its contents, he would make his decision accordingly. Inside the Luo clan's grand hall, the atmosphere was heavy as the old ancestor questioned one of his subordinates about the investigation into the mysterious killer from the secret realm. The follower explained that the battlefield outside the realm had been devastated so thoroughly that very little remained as evidence. All they could deduce was that the culprit possessed strength at the peak of the ancient emperor realm, nothing more. Seeing interest in the ancestor's eyes, the subordinate continued, mentioning that during an inquiry in the eastern regions he had uncovered a striking rumor. 5 years earlier, a divine child had been born in the Zhang clan's lands. He described the astonishing visions that accompanied the birth: golden lotus blooming above the bitter sea, the projection of mountains and rivers, and even the apparition of an ancient king descending from the 9 heavens. Hearing this, the old ancestor shot to his feet in disbelief, repeating the vision aloud as though his mind refused to accept it. The phenomenon, he muttered, could only appear for one person: a child born with the archaic sacred body. With growing unease, he demanded confirmation that these weren't fabricated tales. The follower knelt firmly, assuring him that he wouldn't dare lie and that he had confirmed each detail himself. He added another horrifying truth: that the Zhang clan's child had been born not only with the archaic sacred body, but at the cultivation level of an innate true immortal. The ancestor fell silent, realizing that the divine child being discussed was none other than the one he personally cast out from the clan. Regret washed over him. Had the child been raised among them, the Luo clan would never have feared decline. He cursed the endless misfortune of the day before declaring that Luo Tian must answer for this. Storming out with the subordinate, he arrived at Luo Tian's residence and shouted for him to come out at once. Inside, Luo Tian, confused as to why the ancestor was enraged yet again, especially after the clan's earlier disaster, hurried out to greet him. But the ancestor immediately launched into reprimands, demanding to know how he had the nerve to ask for explanations. He revealed furiously that the child born from Zhang Zixin possessed the archaic sacred body, and accused him of throwing away the clan's destined star for no reason. Luo Tian was stunned. He insisted this was impossible, reminding the ancestor that he himself had examined the fetus years ago. At the time, there had been no spiritual fluctuations at all, only a damaged foundation that condemned the child to never reaching even the spirit manifestation realm. How could that possibly be the same person now rumored to have a sacred body? Luo Tian redirected his rage toward the follower, accusing him of spreading lies. The terrified guard fell to his knees, begging for mercy and explaining that the news had spread across the entire eastern immortal realm, and that he had verified it several times before reporting it. At that point, Mu Yun entered, telling Luo Tian not to act impulsively and assuring him that the clan's death guards would never bring unfounded rumors. She greeted the ancestor respectfully and suggested that since the rumors concerned events from 5 years ago and were carried only by word of mouth, they could still be exaggerations. Perhaps, she proposed, the Zhang clan had fabricated them to regain face after being expelled by the Luo clan. Luo Tian argued that the matter was too important to ignore entirely. If it was a lie, there was no harm in checking, but if it was the truth, they could not afford negligence. Mu Yun then offered a plan. She reasoned that the Zhang clan was already declining, and with the Luo clan's influence, simply summoning Zhang Zixin and her son to pay respects would make the Zhang clan eternally indebted to them while allowing the Luo side to personally verify the child's physique. She added confidently that even if the Zhang clan refused, they need not worry, because her own son, Lu Xing, showed the early signs of a future great emperor. Her words delighted Luo Tian, who recalled the auspicious signs that accompanied Lu Xing's birth and affirmed that his son's talent was no less than divine. The ancestor, regaining his composure, admitted he had been so overwhelmed by bad news that he had momentarily forgotten about Lu Xing. He ordered Mu Yun to bring the boy at once. Soon after, Lu Xing appeared and greeted his ancestor and parents with humble composure. The old ancestor observed him proudly, his calm aura, his steady temperament, and the increasingly dense glow of his stellar bloodline. Confident that this boy would rise to the pinnacle of martial arts, he praised him lavishly. Luo Tian assured him that Lu Xing's progress had been increasing rapidly and promised to accompany him personally to the upcoming Immortal Palace competition. The ancestor, beaming, repeated his approval several times and declared that with such a successor, the clan would grow stronger than ever before. Still, he warned them not to overlook the Zhang clan matter and demanded a thorough investigation. Once the ancestor left, Luo Tian ordered his son back to training, telling him that cultivation was like rowing upstream. One either advanced or was swept back. When Lu Xing had gone, Mu Yun immediately confronted her husband, accusing him of thinking about Zhang Zixin again the moment he heard that her child had talent. She suggested he wished to bring them back. Luo Tian tried to calm her, explaining gently that the boy was, after all, his own flesh and blood, a descendant of the Luo clan, and if his talent truly surpassed expectations, winning him over would benefit the clan. But even he admitted uncertainty. He had seen the damaged foundation himself, and the medicine god Valley's doctor had confirmed it. He could not fathom how a child with such a fate could now possess a sacred body. Mu Yun rejected the idea outright, declaring she refused to believe anyone could surpass her son. She ended the discussion and told him to proceed with preparations for the plan. Meanwhile, far away, Princess Meng finally arrived at the palace of the great Xia dynasty. Exhausted from the journey and heavy with the weight of everything she had witnessed, she resolved that she must report the truth about that troublesome boy, Wang, to her father immediately. Soldiers filled the courtyard as the divine ship descended, saluting in unison to welcome back the Grand Princess. Princess Meng stepped down with her generals, thanked the troops for their vigilance, and informed them that command of the divine vessel was now theirs. The soldiers bowed as she dismissed them, then she instructed her generals to keep everything they had witnessed in strict confidence until the emperor himself decided how to proceed. After receiving their assurances, she made her way toward the grand hall. Inside the throne room, she saluted her father and reported that she had returned from the secret realm with significant accomplishments, insisting she had upheld the honor of the great Xia dynasty. The emperor beckoned her closer, affectionately calling her Keener as he examined her. His expression hardened when he realized she had activated the imperial seal. Her spiritual energy was nearly drained. He immediately concluded that she must have faced mortal danger and demanded a full explanation. Princess Meng admitted she had no way to hide the truth from him. She explained that the Luo clan had allowed Luo Dong to trap her with the immortal binding pearl, intending to commit a severe offense, and that she survived only because a companion intervened. She went on to describe how, rather than retreat, the Luo clan escalated matters by sending their ancient sage, Luo Tangkang, to intercept the divine ship on the return journey. The emperor's fury erupted instantly, strong enough that the armrest of his throne splintered beneath his grip. Hearing the commotion, the empress hurried inside, startled by his anger and begging him to explain. He responded that the Luo clan had gone too far by daring to attack his daughter, questioning whether they now thought themselves above the great Xia divine dynasty. Enraged, he ordered his attendants to prepare an imperial decree demanding an immediate explanation from the Luo clan. Both the Empress and Princess Meng quickly intervened to stop him. The Empress urged caution, reminding him that although the Luo clan was not an ancient family, their history was long and their influence deep. A war between the two would cause devastation on both sides. The Emperor countered sharply, asking how their recent actions were any different from a direct declaration of hostility. Princess Meng urged him to rein in his anger, warning him that a conflict of this scale would plunge the entire desolate ancient immortal realm into turmoil. She reminded him that countless hidden powers were already watching for an opportunity to strike at their dynasty. She added that she had returned not only with danger, but with a discovery far more important than the Luo clan's insult, and she asked him to examine it. She handed him the spirit recording stone. Curious, he took it, and as he held it, he found himself quietly proud of her. Despite facing such danger, she had kept her composure, weighing the fate of their people before anything else. Inwardly, he chastised himself, realizing that his daughter's steadiness exceeded even his own. Regaining his bearing, he announced that he would no longer tolerate the humiliation inflicted upon them, and declared that the Luo clan must surrender Luo Dong. This alone would settle the matter. The empress quickly objected, reminding him of the long, stable relationship between their dynasty and the Luo clan. She insisted the incident could still be dismissed as a minor conflict and suggested that instead of issuing threats, they could strengthen ties by marrying Princess Minking to Luo Dong. Minking was of age and had many suitors. This match would resolve both diplomatic and domestic concerns. The emperor reacted with explosive disbelief, asking how she could describe the event as trivial when Princess Meng had nearly lost her life. He rejected the idea outright. The empress calmly clarified that she did not defend Luo Dong personally, but rather his position as the Luo clan's direct heir, someone destined to hold immense authority. Before the emperor could argue further, Princess Meng spoke. Addressing her stepmother, she stated plainly that if anyone believed she admired Luo Dong, they were entirely mistaken. Confused, the empress asked what she meant. Princess Meng then revealed, without hesitation, that Luo Dong had already been killed. The moment Princess Meng revealed that Luo Dong was dead, both the emperor and the empress froze in disbelief. The empress struggled to accept it, insisting that someone like Luo Dong, one of the most promising among the Luo clan's younger generation, couldn't possibly have died inside the secret realm, not at the hands of mere beasts. But Princess Meng clarified the situation immediately. It was Wang who had killed him while rescuing her. The emperor's expression changed instantly as he recalled the stories from 5 years ago. The child born to the Zhang clan, the one whose birth shook the heavens, the one who appeared already at the level of a true immortal. If such a child had grown into a celestial king by now, then defeating Luo Dong would indeed have been a simple matter. Yet before he could speak, Princess Meng added calmly that Wang was no longer at the celestial king level. He had already reached the peak of the celestial emperor realm. The emperor found that impossible to believe. He reminded his daughter that Wang was only 5 years old this year, but she responded coolly, saying that if he doubted her words, he only had to view the memory stone she had given him. The empress still refused to accept any of it, insisting that no child could advance so monstrously. But before she could say more, the emperor turned his anger on her. He reminded her sharply that she had broken off the engagement between Wang and their daughter without his permission, a decision that had cost the great Xia divine dynasty a prodigy of immeasurable worth. He hadn't even punished her for acting on her own, yet she still dared to argue. The empress collapsed to the floor, knocking her head against it as she begged him to stop, pleading for leniency for Princess Yao's sake. Hearing that, the emperor relented slightly. He told her to stand, return to her quarters, reflect on her actions, and remain there until he decided otherwise. Once she left the hall, he turned to Princess Meng and asked whether she truly believed this child was someone worth personally apologizing to the Zhang clan for. Princess Meng didn't answer directly. Instead, she smiled faintly, knowing her father well. He always masked his intentions, and the simple fact that he was asking the question meant he was already leaning toward acknowledging Wang's value. Rather than attempt to persuade him further, she instructed him to simply watch the memory stone. As the recording played, the emperor witnessed every scene from the secret realm, Wang crushing Luo Dong, overwhelming the elder, and even addressing the emperor himself as old man. Though the boy's tone grated on him, Princess Meng lightly reminded her father of his earlier question. Was such a child worth an apology? The emperor, however, was already lost in thought, wondering if Wang and Princess Meng were a compatible match. Despite the boy's rudeness, he couldn't ignore the fact that a 5-year-old at the peak of the celestial emperor realm was not someone any dynasty could afford to offend. The emperor then asked Princess Meng outright whether she had developed a fondness for the boy. She flushed immediately and insisted her interest wasn't personal. She only wanted to ensure that the great Xia divine empire did not foolishly reject such an extraordinary talent again. The scene shifted afterward to the decision. The emperor formally approved both the apology to the Zhang clan and the reinstatement of the marriage agreement. Yet even then, he grumbled to himself, unable to let go of the fact that Wang had dared call him an old man. Later, inside one of the palace chambers, the empress returned to her quarters where Princess Yao hurried over, asking why her mother looked so furious. The Empress vented her frustration, complaining that Wang had originally been engaged to Princess Yao. And now that he had been revealed as a once-in-a-generation genius, the Emperor was blaming her for breaking the betrothal when it was clearly the Luo clan's foolishness that had driven him away. What angered her most was that she was the one suffering the consequences. Princess Yao, however, brushed it off, telling her mother not to worry. She insisted that no matter how talented Wang was, she was more than capable of teaching him a lesson for upsetting her mother. The Empress finally allowed a smile, reminded of her daughter's rare spiritual Tao body, the same innate constitution once held by legendary great emperors. She urged Yao to focus on her cultivation, especially with the selection for the Creation Immortal Palace taking place next month. Only by entering could she stand among the true prodigies, and then she would no longer have to live a life of constant diplomacy as her mother did. Princess Yao smiled confidently, reassuring her mother. She even added that if she happened to meet Wang during the Immortal Palace selection, she would give him a beating on her mother's behalf, something she looked forward to.